Welcome to Reimagining History, where voices from the past have a story waiting to be told. Tonight, we step into a moment of impossible choice, Richmond Palace, 1587. A queen sits alone, a death warrant before her. In her hands, she holds not just paper, but the fate of an entire nation. What thoughts race through the mind of a queen as she confronts the greatest test of her reign? This is Queen Elizabeth I, Duty and Sacrifice.
Imagine stepping into a time when a kingdom's fate rested on a single decision, a time when loyalty and betrayal danced at the edges of every shadow. Tonight, I invite you to journey back to one of the most pivotal moments in English history. As you watch, let the weight of the crown mingle with the weight of conscience, reminding us that even in our darkest moments, the truth of one's heart must guide the way. Before we dive into the heart of the story, allow me to paint a picture of the era. England was at a crossroads, a realm divided by faith and fear. Catholics and Protestants eyed each other with suspicion. Foreign powers plotted our downfall, and Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, had become the focal point of those who wished to see me fall. In this turbulent time, a queen was called upon not only to rule, but to ensure her nation's survival. I am Elizabeth I, and today I'll tell you the real story behind the most difficult decision of my reign. The year was 1587. For 19 years, I had kept Mary under house arrest in England. She had fled to my realm, seeking protection after being forced to abdicate her Scottish throne, but instead brought with her a web of conspiracies. The Catholic powers of Europe saw her as the legitimate heir to England's throne, and my enemies rallied to her cause. What history doesn't often tell you is the true weight of that responsibility. Each intercepted letter, each uncovered plot, each whispered rumour of assassination became another stone in the wall between mercy and necessity. Spain's King Philip saw Mary as his chance to bring England back to Rome. The Pope had excommunicated me, releasing my Catholic subjects from their allegiance to my crown. France watched and waited, hoping to exploit any sign of weakness. Every day brought new reports of priests smuggled into England, of plots being hatched in foreign courts, of whispered conversations in shadowy corners of noble houses. When the Babington plot was discovered, a Catholic conspiracy to assassinate me and crown Mary in my place, the evidence against her was irrefutable. My spy master, Francis Walsingham, had intercepted letters written in Mary's own hand, approving the plan for my death. My advisers pressed for immediate action. Parliament demanded her death. The burden of this decision lay heavy upon the crown. I held the death warrant before me, knowing these words would forever alter the course of history. I signed it with the full knowledge of its gravity, then handed it to my secretary Davison with explicit instructions about its handling. But events moved faster than I intended. Word reached me at Richmond Palace. Mary had been executed at Fotheringhay Castle. I had not given the final order. My secretary had acted without my explicit command. In my fury, I banished Davison to the Tower. The weight of this moment, the death of an anointed queen, shook the very foundations of how monarchy itself was viewed. The aftermath brought a silence to the court that spoke louder than any words. In my private chambers, I confronted the reality of what had transpired. This was more than the end of one queen's life. It was a moment that would echo through generations, challenging the very nature of power and justice. I'll tell you something about those days after the execution. Each time I sat upon my throne, I felt the eyes of Europe upon me, judging my decision. Spain used Mary's death as its final justification for launching the Great Armada. The Catholic powers of Europe united in their condemnation. Yet I knew then, as I know now, that a monarch's duty must sometimes overshadow their personal inclinations. The safety of England, its people, its future, had to take precedence over all else. Even as the political storm raged, I found myself thinking of Mary's son, James, now King of Scotland. In time, he would succeed me as England's king, uniting our two realms. Perhaps that was Mary's final victory, that her blood would one day sit upon both thrones. In your time, when I see leaders face impossible choices between mercy and security, I wish I could tell them. Sometimes there is no clear path, no choice unmarked by sorrow, but it is in these moments that we must look deepest into our hearts and find the courage to bear the consequences of our decisions. That February morning wasn't just about signing a death warrant. It was about the price of power, the burden of responsibility, and the moment when political necessity must overcome personal reluctance. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. And remember, history isn't just about what happened, it's about why it still matters.